action. Our projects, you will learn how to use available technologies and how they intersect with your knowledge and skills. You'll analyze an organization's overall content strategy, implement this strategy via content modeling, and you will help those around you to better develop and manage content. This course simulates typical scenarios a content creator experiences. For this particular class, this is set up as a simulation of a technical communication consulting firm. In this class, you'll be considered as new hires who have just entered our employee training course. Just like in a real office setting, part of this course also includes being placed on a team. Your individual and group assignments will be case-based in that you will have particular technical communication problems to solve for a specific clientele and audience. Let's get started. Let's talk about what is our foundation for technical communication. We go back first to the ancients of Greece and Rome, to Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, and Quintilian. Each one of these men contributes something significant to our understanding of communication. Socrates contributed the idea of dialectical reasoning or use of logic or logos. Plato contributed to the art of reasoning and said that it should be used to search for absolute truth or the universals. Aristotle said dialectical reasoning is good and universal truths are necessary, but persuasion must appeal to emotion too, and he defines rhetoric as finding the available means of persuasion. Cicero, a premier orator who perfected the use of dialectical argumentation and rhetorical persuasion, is a good model for us to follow. And Quintilian defines rhetoric as the art of a good man speaking well. In other words, it's not just enough to have a sound argument, but you must have the ethics and the character to back it up. Well, why are these ideas important today? Today we use rhetorical principles to communicate with others both within and outside of the workplace. Rhetorical principles are used in technical communication to help the writer address the needs of particular audiences. And because of this, let's take a look at the essential elements of rhetorical principles. First, I'll introduce this idea of Aristotle's 3+1. There are three artistic appeals: logos, which is logic, ethos, which is ethics, pathos, which is emotion. And there are two extra ideas that we need to add to those appeals. One is kairos, which is timing, and the second one is something called to prepon, which means discretion or appropriateness. As we work through this slide deck, I will highlight for you why each of those are important to our understanding of rhetorical principles and technical communication. Next, let's talk about something called the 5 canons of rhetoric. Originally, these were used in oratory or public speaking, but now the 5 canons of rhetoric can be applied to all types of communication forms, whether they are written, oral, visual, or electronic. These are invention, arrangement, style, memory, and delivery. Let's take a look at each one so that we can understand how they work. First of all, invention. I like to think of it as what can I say? Invention entails doing research. What is there to say on my topic generally, and narrowing the topic or deciding one's point of view? Invention has to do with finding good ideas as well. So out of everything that one could say, what do I want to say about this topic at this time with respect to this particular audience? Arrangement. What organization strategies make the most sense? Here you want to make an assertion, support it with evidence, reasoning, and an illustration if necessary. Make a transition and move on to your next point. Develop elaborating points without overwhelming the audience with too many details. Style. Where is emphasis needed? Here is the use of figurative language and rhetorical devices. Figurative language has to do with using words to create imagery or painting word pictures. This is also known as diction. Rhetorical devices have to do with how words are arranged in a sentence, also known as syntax. And style is connected to the artistic proof of pathos or emotion. Memory. How can I remember important information? Well, first of all, memory is not necessarily memorization, and in classical times it did have more to do with memorization and mnemonic devices. However, today, memory is the ability to recall information extemporaneously or as needed to respond appropriately to your audience. And along with memory comes the +2, that is kairos, and to prepon. Both of these are very important. Timing in the delivery of communication is very important, as well as discretion or appropriateness of the type of communication that is used for speech or for some written form of communication or electronic form of communication. All of these have to be taken into consideration as to the occasion that's driving the communication stream. So fitting the communication to the occasion. Delivery. In this situation, how might I effectively deliver this message? Delivery may be subdivided into the written, oral, visual, and electronic modes. Physical aspects of delivery vary according to mode. For example, in oral presentations, physical aspects of delivery include posture, eye contact, nonverbals, and gestures. In written compositions, physical aspects of delivery include page layout and design, proper attention to spelling and punctuation, and so forth. Vocal aspects have to do with tone, rate, pitch, and volume. This leads us to something called the rhetorical situation. The rhetorical situation is always in response to something called an exigence. The person who responds to the exigence is the speaker or the writer. This is all bound in and wrapped up into the purpose for the communication. The message or the subject, the audience, and the context. Each one of these 6 elements comprise the rhetorical situation. Let's look at each one in depth. A rhetorical situation is the context in which you're interpreting or composing a piece of written, verbal, or visual communication. When purposeful language can resolve the exigence, the situation is rhetorical. In order to fulfill the purpose, the writer must adapt the message to the intended audience. Here's a diagram of how the rhetorical situation works. You have some sort of exigence that occurs. This is a situation or problem that causes the speaker to create a message for a particular audience. This message is bounded by the contextual constraints of the situation, and the entire rhetorical situation then is designed to fit the purpose of the communication stream. Here it is again. The speaker or writer in a rhetorical situation is a person who identifies the exigence. The exigence is the reason or problem that impels that person to write in the first place. The subject or message is information delivered through written, visual, or verbal means. The purpose is finding resolution to the exigence or the rhetorical problem. The audience is the reader or readers who have the capability of resolving the exigence or the problem. And the context. Those are the constraints or obstacles and resources or positive influences in the environment surrounding the rhetorical situation. Context is affected by time and place, speaker and audience, medium of delivery, circumstances under which speaker and reader communicate, social, political, religious, and other cultural factors, constraints and resources of this rhetorical situation. Therefore, how and what you communicate is always influenced either positively or negatively by context. Context also helps a speaker understand his or her audience. So you could have a specialized audience that's already predisposed to your message, or you could have a diverse audience which represents a range of expertise and interest, or you could have multiple audiences who are listening for different reasons. Rhetorical principles provide communicators with a language to describe the rationale for their communication choices. Rhetorical principles help us to understand content by providing the context for its creation and use. So what is content in technical communication? Well, first of all, content is the combination of information and interactions that comprise the user experience. Content is synonymous with value, comprising what users see and interact with. If we think of web content, this is particularly different from print content. Web content is dynamic, it's linked and distributed, customized, granular, and interactive. Today, content is dynamic. What we see on the web we expect to change soon or to have changed recently, and we often talk of stale or stagnant pages. That's because pages that don't recognize us or recognize what day it is are less easy to trust as sources of information. Note how different this is from the medium of print. Content is also linked and distributed. Users experience content in a localized way when it shows up on their screens. Now we know that content does reside on servers that are remote and widely dispersed. However, the ability to link content with other content means that often the information is the interface. Today, content is customized. Content as the primary location of value of a website is most prized when a user's experiences are tailored to his or her individual needs. This creates an interesting dilemma. When should we customize to the point of personalization? And also, is there a point where delivering value by personalizing yields diminishing returns? Today, content is granular. Today, content is far less likely to stay neatly placed in the boundaries we associate with traditional print genres. As we develop better ways to attach metadata to content, we increase its granularity. Familiar units from the print world, like the page or the paragraph, give way to new ones. Today, content is granular. Granularization of content simply means identifying and placing boundaries around smaller and smaller chunks of information so it can be referenced, styled, and reused. Can you think of a situation where we'd want word or character level granularity? Content is interactive. If we truly accept the idea that content comprises both interactions and information, then web content can conceivably take the place of applications as we know them. Technical communication then and now. Old school technical communicators operated with a clear mandate defined by the difference between the product and information about the product. The content today effectively erases this distinction. Combined developer roles have emerged from what used to be clear distinctions. How will you fit in? How many of you envision a career in which you will be somehow responsible for content, both traditional print and otherwise? How do you see the tasks of managing information, interaction, and value as interrelated?